Hello, lovely people, and welcome back to another podcast episode of me, Scott, where I chat shit about my past, particularly living in London and some of the little adventures I had. So now, as you may have listened or read in my previous podcast, I lived in a hostel for 2.5 years after getting kicked out of my flat and then by my parents. And I was living in Holborn, and this was during COVID time. And in order to keep my sanity and also make some dough, I decided to get a job as a courier, as a Deliveroo and Uber Eats driver. Well, actually, I started out on Stuart. There's a Spanish app, which is just fucking terrible, if I'm honest. I was getting unpaid £4 an hour, man, working on this job. But it was my first one, so I still appreciate it. But I eventually moved on to Deliveroo and Uber Eats, and maybe I will make a separate episode where I chat some shit about the ups and downs of working as a delivery driver and the fun, awesome experiences I had doing it as well. But there came a time where I was like, enough is enough. I was living in the hostel probably for about a year and a half, and I was seeing people around me. I remember I took a walk in the park, Russell Square, and there was this group of drivers, other Deliveroo drivers, Just Eat, all that kind of shit, and they were complaining about the work, just like blah blah blah, complaining, and it just fired up a spark in me where I was like, man, I'm done with this. Like, I appreciated the job, but if you ever done that kind of work, you kind of know that unless you're gonna become like a vlogger or you're gonna capitalize it in some way, it's basically a dead end job. Meaning there's really no room for management positions or, going up in the ranks. To me, it seemed pretty dead end. And I've been seeing people do it for years, and I was like, fuck, I got to switch this up. So I remember I was like, fuck, I'm done with this. And I remember speaking with my brother because we were doing business together, but then it kind of collapsed for a while. Thankfully, it's back now. But then I was like, man, I need to switch up. And I remember hearing that conversation and I got fired up inside. I remember going to this coffee shop and I was like, fuck this. I'm getting on a platform called Upwork. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a website for freelance jobs. And I remember I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to apply for these jobs as a copywriter because I did it small time with my brother's company and I was good at it. But I never really took the leap to go independent. And I remember banging up my profile and just being kind of frustrated, but in a good way. You know, when you get angry in a good way, it gets you out of lethargicness, depression. And yeah, man, I was fired up. So I wrote this profile and I started applying for jobs. Now, some of these jobs were ridiculous. They were like one-time projects paying like 15 quid. But for me, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to apply for them because if I can start making some side income, I'm going to feel much better about myself. So a week went past. I was still doing the deliveries, which I appreciate, going at night doing deliveries. But I remember I got a job offer for a poem. It was for a love poem for an app that sends digital greeting cards. I forgot the name of it, Magic or Marble or something. And anyway, I just remember the feeling of getting accepted and being given this opportunity. And I did a really good job. It was like 4 to 6 lines of a poem, and I got paid $15 for it. And I remember doing it in a pret-a-manger, and the feeling of sending it off and it being well received. And then, lo and behold, 2 days later, I get another job to do a landing page copy for Invisalign, the dental stuff. I had to do a landing page for them. And I remember doing these 2 jobs and feeling amazing. But I remember the first one, it was only 15 quid. But I worked out that A, I didn't have to do all this writing. B, I could exercise my creativity a little bit more. And C, it didn't take me that long. And then I got the second job. And that was paying like $150, I think. And I remember I worked out the math. And I was earning basically 3 times more than I was on Deliveroo. I think I was probably on £10-12 on Deliveroo. I mean, with my lazy ass, probably more on 7. But when I did the copywriting, I was earning at least 30 quid. And I remember just being like, fuck, I just 3x my money through making one little change. And it was such a big moment for me. I remember walking through Russell Square after just getting paid and just feeling elated. Pardon me, because I knew there was another way to make money. Another way to support myself. Now I was making videos and stuff, but I wasn't capitalizing on it in terms of money. But this was giving me money, official money, straight into my account. And I remember when I first got paid for these 2 projects, I couldn't believe it. It was like magic. I was like, whoa, people do this, I get to do this. I remember going to my favorite coffee shop on the corner. It's called Knox Bros. It's still there. I still sometimes go there. You see, my picture is on the wall. Scott, maybe you can find it. There are many pictures there now. They're taken with their customers. Kind of perverted, but anyway. I remember working from that and being like, this is a new thing. I did this, right? And suppose the reason I'm making this podcast today was that leap was so profound for me. But it took like a feeling of enough is enough to kind of drill some new holes in my life, make some changes, put down some new foundations. And that came in the form of creating the CV, the profile, and then applying for the jobs, doing a couple of interviews or whatever. But guess what? These 2 jobs, I didn't even do any interviews. I did get further jobs where I did a couple of interviews, but these I didn't. And I was like, man, this is so much more fun, so much more effortless. And I still wanted to do delivery, and I still continued doing it. I did both. But it was just having the choice. And I think that's what abundance really is about, where you realize you have the freedom, you have the choice. So yeah, man, I just wanted to share that. It was so insightful. So then after those 2 jobs, I started to get more jobs. I remember doing a big job for Belkin, which is a electronics goods company. They're kind of like a cheap version of Apple. Belkin, you can find them in Currys. And I remember I did their Amazon page, their spring page, and I got paid like $300 or something for it. And I remember I was like, man, like the leap from being a delivery driver to suddenly working with this big company, like multi-million pound company, within a space of a few weeks, few months. I was like, this is unbelievable. And don't get me wrong though, complacency set in, and I started to get a bit lazy. I remember losing a job. I had a job with a really good like vitamin gum company, quite well known. They're in Holland and Barrett, or at least they were. I probably helped accelerate their downfall, but but I remember I started to get lazy. And that's the thing you gotta watch out for. Like, you always want some newness in your life, right? Because when you start something new, it's exciting. But if you're not careful, you can get too settled in, you start to become complacent. And you just like, is this it? But there's always a new vista. So, yeah, man, that's what I wanted to share. And yeah, copywriting is really cool. I still do it now, but I use ChatGPT because everyone does. But I use it for referencing and stuff like that. And of course, it's cheating. I'm a cheater. I totally understand, but who cares? But yeah, I just remember the leap. And I suppose what I'm also saying is don't be afraid to take that leap. Don't be afraid to kind of challenge yourself a bit and stretch yourself a bit, because for me, I always had that download waiting to be accessed. You know, when you have like an idea, like this copywriting idea was just sitting above my head for weeks, if not months, heck, maybe even years, but like weeks or months, it was hovering. I never acted upon it. And as soon as I acted upon it, good things come. I wonder what ideas are in your life where they just sit above your head, but you never act upon them. If they're there and they keep hanging around, they're always going to be there for a reason. Like I've had it with many things. Five-a-side football I recently got into, and I fucking love it. I really enjoyed it, but it took a bit of time because I had hesitation to act upon it. But the idea is always there for a reason. So, yeah, man, maybe next week I'll share my Deliveroo story, or I'll share something else, because there's so many crazy adventures when I was there, particularly in the hostel. I'll definitely make an episode, because they're crazy people I met there. Some unbelievable folks come down to London to experience a night or two, and it's just fascinating. If you've ever been put off by a hostel, definitely don't be. It can be a real fun experience. Very humbling, very eye-opening. So anyway, enough rambling. I just wanted to share that little copywriting story. And yeah, love you guys. I'll chat to you soon. Peace.